was going to stick it in the middle, but I didn't know how that would work.
So why don't we discuss a couple of these? Do you want to go into that first?
Yeah, we actually have a question
regarding
what we were talking about before break. Actually, it's two questions. So the first question for you from the chat room is, have you ever heard of the mystic Neville Goddard? His main point was that as the awareness of Christ consciousness rises in each person, every person becomes aware of Christ literally inside themselves. It goes off the rails when each person awakes to themselves being Christ and jump to the conclusion that they are Christ and no one else, when everyone else is also too often fully asleep.
I've not heard of him by name. I have heard what he is saying said. And perhaps that's true. But from 6 years of age in a church to 23, 24 years of age, I received visions that I did not solicit, that claimed to be from God, that asked me to do what I have done. And I say I am Christos rather than saying I am Christ. To me, Christ is a title that is bestowed by the people. And I do fully expect a legend to grow from me. And I have no idea what it will become. I say I'm just the foundation. I'm not the architect.
Okay, so the follow-up question we had for this, because it goes here. In 2 Corinthians 13:5, the Apostle Paul asks the Corinthian believers a question, or do you not realize about yourselves that Jesus Christ is in you?
To me, Jesus was an example of a good human being who brought forth ways of love. And the fact that people embrace Jesus is a good reflection on the people. That everything that Jesus was as a human being, aside from the divinity, okay, not disparaging individual people's divinity, but just for a moment, everything that was his humanity, anyone can embrace by choice. And I have made a joke that people like to say Jesus was perfect, but nobody's perfect. So, they then turn away, right? Or Jesus was divine, Jesus was God. It's all excuses for separation. Where to me, Jesus' humanity is the admirable example. So yeah, I would agree on what I'm saying is I agree with Paul, put it in simple terms, that Kevin and Jennifer, you are human just like Jesus was human. And if you make some tough choices to stay decent human beings, loving, kind, and compassionate, giving, you know your neighbor, you got empathy, all right, all these good things, that then essentially you will be living as Jesus lived. And if you are living as Jesus lived, then you are a Christed individual in that jargon, right? And you can study and learn a Christ consciousness or a Christos consciousness. I have a chapter from Edgar Cayce, I believe, on Christos consciousness in the thought of Christos. I don't have it in front of me, but I'm pretty sure that it's in there. So yeah, I would agree. And it is precisely my doing as God directed and assuming a somewhat singular view that breeds a lot of friction. I mean, there's the rejection because people think that I'm crazy or insane. There's the rejection because people think I'm power hungry. I'm seeking wealth. I want control over people. And none of those things are true. I've made a point to not do those things. Yeah, so
I agree too. I can see exactly what Sudan is saying, and I see exactly what you're saying. And so let's discuss a couple of these that are mentioned in the Thought of Christos. One is how to seek to receive what one needs from God. Can you talk about that?
Yeah, I looked at that. There's, I don't have the material in front of me, so I'm going to paraphrase it. But essentially, it tells you to say, to ask God for something, to do, and sometimes saying or making a step forward is the doing, and to receive, to think that you are worthy of receiving. Don't think that you can't ask because you are not perfect. You can't ask because you're flawed. It's, I used to say we were made imperfect so that we would have to work together, or we would be doomed, appropriately doomed by our flaws, right? That it's an interdependent world. So, and for me, I put it into what I said are 4 gears, and that was disbelief is an active belief against something. There's doubt. That is, you say you do not know, but you think it probably isn't so. There is faith, which is you do not know, but you think it could be so. And then there is belief, which is an active belief for something. And I say for a person's psychic or paranormal potential to manifest, they must be within faith or belief. And that believing that it could be so opens the door to a flow of will, to a connection with other, and that allows for things to manifest. I say a lot of times people don't believe in themselves, but they will believe in Jesus or in God. And that by connecting with either of those, even if they don't believe in themselves, it then opens themselves up to receiving aid through those vehicles.
Awesome. Another one is how to seek to learn one's psychic potential.
Basically, in a nutshell, it's read, write, and practice. And that is, I believe that people have a genetic predisposition for some psychic things. I believe that during a time of our past, that people with psychic or paranormal abilities were killed. And so the genetics was somewhat purged. But that in our times, we have allowed people with psychic or paranormal abilities to live. And that has allowed for the genes to become commonplace, perhaps once again. So
That's is totally plausible. I mean, makes sense to me.
Yeah, I mean, it's what I like to believe. At any rate, there are things that will happen around a person accidentally, or things that they seem to be able to do. And I believe that it is these things that reflect what a person's genetic predisposition could be. And that even so, every psychic is not born fully grown, that everyone has to go through a learning process. There's things where people are horrified at, say, I see dead people. Wow, that's awful. I mean, the first times it happens, you might go fleeing from the room, all right, where someone else sitting in the room sees nothing, okay? But, so the first thing to do is see what happens accidentally. Then you read about it to see how it operates for people in general. But everybody's going to have something unique, something custom for their own system. My fingers swell when something's going to happen, okay? I mean, some people might get a strange tingle or their eyes might blink. You learn your own operating system, okay?
Right.
So you read about it. Well, first something's happening, and then so you try to read and explore. Being guided by someone who has gone through all of this and who has some clues about it, you know, as long as they're not smothering you, if they're guiding you, then that can be helpful. And so I say people should write down these things. When you read the books, take notes and write them down. When you talk with people and they tell you things, write them down. And this becomes what is called your grimoire. And it is those things that you warm up to, that seem most relevant or most interesting. It could be these are the things that are actually meant for you as an individual. And if you have them in one book, in one place, it's a lot easier to access and review than just doing it in your memory. And I believe by writing something down, the very process of writing, or typing it if you want, is helping to imprint it in your memory so that you retain it.
We agree with that.
And then,
sure.
Yeah, and then there's just practice. And it is in practicing that you can run across the disbelief, the doubt, the faith, and the belief. Because when you fail, you can strengthen your disbelief and your doubt. And when you succeed, you're feeding your faith or your belief. All right? Personally.
Why don't we continue this conversation after our next commercial break?
Yes.
You are listening to Paraversal Universe, and we will be right back with our guests for the next segment.
You are listening to WBHM, Digital Broadcasting, the best in paranormal talk only on Paranormal Experience Radio. Broadcasting live out of Birmingham, Alabama.